And do you support Donald Trump?
I mean, I choose him over Kamala.
Okay, why so?
Just the things that he stands for that, I mean, obviously, not everything he's been doing I support, but there are some things that I do agree with.
Such as?
Pro life.
Okay. Why are you against abortion? Why do you think it should be illegal?
I don't think that people should kill a cell that is potentially going to be a human being. They're stopping the development, and I think that we should stand for that life and protect it.
Okay. Do you think the IVF process is wrong because they
No,
discard many zygotes and embryos as a part of the process, which are cellular lives? If you
but
don't
why
care
do
about
they
those, then
just
it's seemingly something that's going to be different than just cellular life that's going to establish whether or not you value it.
so why do they discard them?
Because they either they're not going to use them or they specifically are not viable.
Right. So it wouldn't potentially develop into a human being, right?
So in some circumstances that could be the case, but not in all.
So what are the circumstances that it would potentially be a human being if it were
Oh, and
to?
situations in which specifically like they could have used it, but they didn't need to use anymore.
Right, but it wasn't so like they didn't use it, meaning it didn't have the correct
So let's
process
no no they
in
made
order to develop.
listen. So they made six of them. They used one of them,
Hmm.
right? And the rest of the five, since the one already worked, let's say the first one worked, they're left over. What do they do with
Hmm.
them?
So the other five will, if they just let them be, they would be a human. They would grow into, develop into a human
No,
being.
they could put them within conditions in which they would, but outside of that context, no, they wouldn't. If they just left it, if you left
Okay.
it in the
Yeah,
circumstance it
so
was, it
that's
wouldn't continue on.
right, exactly. So it wasn't, I mean, they had the success in six, is what you're saying, and they chose one out of the six. But the other
But you just
five,
said
they
you just
didn't
said something that
inhibit.
could be a potential human being you would value is, and that's true in the context of IVF.
Right, but they didn't put it into whatever it needed in order to develop properly into a human being versus like an actual like cell within
Okay, wait.
somebody's
So
body.
then you could say the same thing. Then you don't value a zygote prior to implantation, prior to
No,
the
because
pregnancy beginning.
well, the way that, okay, so two people had intercourse, right? And that's what brought that baby or that cell about, right? So once that came into life or cell, in your words, then with future development, it would potentially become a human being. Versus the other way around, you're talking about like something being made in a test tube, like in a science lab, pretty much. There's a big difference.
You know how many kids like exist today? How many people in this chat specifically came through the IVF process? If you specifically are a product of IVF, type three in the comment section.
Yeah, I have a family member that is a IVF child, and I'm not against it whatsoever. That's why I said when you asked me if I was against it, I said no.
Look at
But
look at the
but
chat. So
you're
there's so many people this is applicable to. So you understand that they absolutely can be people, right?
yeah, they can be people, but they didn't process them through the test tube, like or whatever process, because I
The
don't know
petri
it.
dish.
Yeah, they didn't do that in order to let the other five survive. It's
Okay,
science. It's like actual, literally,
I don't
like
even know what you're
sitting in a
supposed to say.
science lab
Yeah, I understand.
versus. Okay, okay. So that's where I don't agree because you're comparing that with like an actual cell being developed within the human body
This is an
because of.
actual cell, though. So it's not just
I
like a
know,
science experiment.
right.
It's a cell like that. It's a human cellular organism. Okay, in the same way.
Okay, but it wasn't done the same, right? Can we agree
Yeah,
on that?
obviously there's a different process, sure, but
Okay,
they're still
right,
utilizing sperm and the egg.
right. because they're doing it themselves, like whatever doctor is doing it, right?
Yeah.
And they're not always successful, but when they are, then they create a baby out of it because they let it develop.
So, and do you think it's
So,
wrong that
like,
they discard those zygotes and embryos?
no, I didn't say it was wrong that they
So, if it's
discard
not
them.
wrong, then why is abortion wrong in the first trimester, for example?
Because it's a baby, well, cells within a body from an act of two people deciding to be intimate. And now there's a cell that grew and is going to develop into a baby. What you're talking about is like something that's going on in a science room or a doctor room, but that like we can't control that. How can we control what they
Yes,
do
we
with
can.
the other five that?
You can regulate it, or you can ban them from doing that.
So you think that we should?
Hell no. I don't give a about zygotes and embryos. The point that I'm bringing up is that like there's something that's different about that cellular human life comparative to who we are, who newborns are, who babies are, that differentiates one in terms of personhood versus the other. What's the difference? Well, it's going to be subjective experience. That doesn't happen until 20 through 24 weeks in the womb. So prior to that point, there is literally no reason to designate abortion as being wrong and no reason to restrict access to abortion.
Interesting standpoint there. I mean, I see what you're saying. I just I stand on protecting a life that is within the mother's womb that will potentially be a person, a human being.
Yeah, so what's wrong with it? What's wrong with getting an abortion? The same thing could be said for the zygotes and embryos that were being discarded. They could be a human being.
I just feel like you have to protect those voices that are not heard. And with the IVF, that's different. I don't view it the same as
Oh,
you do.
but they have voices that cannot be heard.
They were never potentially what they're like going to be a baby.
Oh, okay. So same thing said for the embryos that you get an abortion for, like that they weren't, they never got to the point. So why are they valuable?
That's different because you're stopping the process of development. The other one, they're not stopping the process of development, they're trying to create development. There's a difference between creating development and stopping the process. That's just how I look at least.
Yeah, so you understand that both of them are stopping the process given that it's already been established. In the case of the situation with
But you said that.
hold up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
In the situation with
Finish.
IVF, you've already established a process of conception, and then you're not continuing with the process in terms of implantation, right? But in the situation specifically with abortion, right, technically the pregnancy already stopped, but they're trying to prevent the process of pregnancy.
Right. But for
Yeah, we don't
IVF,
want
you
pregnancy.
said that,
So what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with preventing pregnancy?
like I said, I don't think it's right to take that life away just because you feel like you're not financially stable or whatever reason.
Do you
It
think it's okay
just,
to pull the plug on an individual in your family that's brain dead?
um, I mean, there's different circumstances. I mean, I don't, that'd be very hard for me to do that, to be honest, personally. But
But do you think it
they,
should be legally allowed for people to pull the plug on an individual in their family that's brain dead?
I mean, if there's no chance at life, then obviously, the answer I would say is it's not wrong.
Well,
But
they are
there's no chance
cellularly
at
speaking
life.
living, but they are brain dead, which means that their sentient life is never going to come
Right,
back.
but they won't potentially ever have life, right?
Wait, they have
They're
cellular
brain dead.
life. They have
They have
cellular life, but they're never going to
but
come
the
back in terms of
cellular life
sentient
in a
life.
okay, but the cellular life in a baby or the cellular life that's potentially going to actually be a baby and a person, that's different. They're going to live, they're going to be alive, right? When they're born versus somebody that's brain dead is just laying there, and if the doctor's saying they're not going to have life but their cellular life is alive, like that doesn't compare to me. You can't put the two and say these are the same.
Where's the hand art? I'm really confused with what you're trying to say, to be totally honest with you.
Well, you just told me that if I'm okay with somebody having the plug pulled on them if they're cellularly alive, is that correct or no? Am I
Yeah,
getting you wrong?
cellular life, yes.
Versus their brain being dead, like inactive. But you're comparing that to an actual cell within somebody's body that's going to develop and turn into a human being. Where, like, how is that compare? Like, how do you compare the two? I don't understand.
Because they both have cellular life. That's
Right,
all I'm
but the
comparing on the basis
one
of.
cellular life is the brain's dead versus the other one, the brain's gonna
So
develop. So
you don't
to
just value cellular life. So the point I'm making is that prior to sentient life, why do you value it?
I'm not saying that I don't value it. I'm saying the developmental process is what I value. So one's gonna develop into a human being, the other one is brain dead. So you get what I'm saying or no?
Okay, then why don't okay, so but that doesn't mean that you establish the value at conception because it's not developing at conception. It would then mean that you establish the value at implantation
A
because that's when it's
baby,
going to
one,
start developing.
right. So once it's conceived, it's slowly developing, right?
No.
Into
No.
no,
No,
it just
once
sits there.
implantation occurs, the beginning of pregnancy.
Hmm.
So conception
Right.
happens prior to implantation.
Okay, and then it implants, right, in the
Yes,
egg.
and yes, and then that causes pregnancy,
So it's a whole
and then it
process,
starts
right?
developing.
So you believe that in that process, somebody should have the right to go and stop that process and take that
Absolutely.
potential life.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then, I mean, I don't think that's right because that life is not being fought for. It's being discarded.
I don't care. Like I
Well,
genuinely,
that's
well, who cares? Who cares
heartbreaking.
about
Well,
the?
that's
I care
heartbreaking.
a lot more about the sentient individual that's pregnant, that's going to have traumatic experiences due to the fact that they're being forced to go through a pregnancy, rather than caring about literally a zygote or an embryo.
But they made the choice to do something
Like
that
how?
they have. Yeah, they knew there was an
So
outcome of having a baby.
so
So maybe we have to make choices better, right? If you don't want
so you do you
something,
mean not?
um,
So
I
by choice is
mean,
better, you mean
maybe
not, right?
insurance. I mean, maybe so. If
Okay, what
you
about for
cannot
people
take,
specifically who are? Should they be able to get access to an abortion?
I mean, I know people that came from scenarios, and I would be very sad to say that their parents
So
discarded
so you
them.
think it should be illegal to get access to an abortion if you're?
I mean, that's a very touchy place to discuss because
So do you think it should be illegal?
do I think it should be illegal? Um, that's a hard one to be honest. I think that they're possibly the person should have the right, but I mean at the same time carrying the baby and putting up for adoption still gives life a chance. And I'm for life.
So you
I'm
think
pro
they should have
life.
an option to get an abortion, correct?
I'm not sure to be honest. I
You're
can't
not
say
sure.
I
So a 10-year-old victim shouldn't have the option to be able to get access to an abortion?
well that's just sick right there.
Yeah, of course. So should they be able to get
Yeah.
access to an abortion?
Um I mean, I would say I don't know, honestly. That's a tough one.
Because the reality of the matter is that it's sick and it does happen. And in the circumstances in which it does happen, those kids should not be forced to go through the pregnancies.
Right, but should we then use like how common is that occurs?
It doesn't matter how common it is. In no circumstance should a child be forced to go through a pregnancy. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just thinking. Yeah, there you got me there because that's a tough situation to face. I mean, God forbid that happens to anybody. That's horrific to have to face that.
Okay, so I guess like in that circumstance, would you then see like maybe the harmful impacts of the Trump administration policy when they leave abortion access up to the states? It restricts access to abortion for like individuals who are.
I mean, as far as I think that if they're underage, there should definitely be some doctor that specializes in that because that kid's already traumatized by being, and then on top of it having to carry a baby and go through that, that's like,
I mean,
you know, the
that could be said for any rape victim, right? It's a lot to have to go through for anyone. And by the way, that's for any person who's pregnant. It is a lot to go through to say that someone has to go through a pregnancy and give birth. Like genuinely, that's a huge obligation to give to someone. So I do think that people are too willing to just give that obligation up and to say that people should have to uphold that no matter what when they're the only ones in the circumstance in which can, and they literally requires their internal bodily resources, lots of physical labor, and incredible amounts of internal energy, right?
yeah, no, I
Right,
mean,
and
I
literally,
have
by the way,
kids.
medical risks. You understand that like there's lots of risks associated with maternity that people should not have to go through as well. They should have the option on that. And for someone say for example, they are not ready to have a kid yet, and they want to be in the best medical health for their children later in life. Wouldn't it make sense for them to get an abortion earlier on so that they can have more children later on when they choose to? Like say for that for their own whether it be financial or even medical health.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from as far as like taking people's rights away for like, having the option to do what they think is right or wrong. So I understand that. I just also stand on the side where I think that a life should be protected. But there's circumstances, like for instance, with the underage child that was, you wouldn't want to force them through more trauma. I think
Okay,
sometimes, oh,
so you
go
could say
ahead.
that for any rape victim, correct?
I mean, like I said, I know people that are the product of, sadly.
Okay, and I mean that. So like, I guess that just like think about it this way. Um, my parents, them choosing not to date each other, wouldn't have been wrong. Do you agree?
Yeah,
But I wouldn't exist if they didn't do that.
yeah, but that's different
So do you see? Do you see what I
because,
mean? Just because a certain action would have led to a certain person not existing doesn't mean that certain action is wrong, right? Right? Because again,
I mean,
that literally, like my parents not dating wouldn't be wrong, yet it would not lead to my existence. It would not lead to my sister's existence. And three people wouldn't have existed if my parents chose not to date.
yeah, but if they chose to be abstinent, then you also wouldn't be here,
Yeah.
right?
So again, would that have been wrong?
No, because they didn't act knowing that there was something that could come out of that act. It's just like, think about it. If
Wait,
people
you
walk
know that
around,
when you get into a relationship with someone that you could have children with them, especially if you're looking to have children, which my parents were.
right? So you were, in a sense, planned out? I
Yes,
don't know.
definitely. I was planned.
Okay. All right, there you go. So your parents wanted to have you, and I'm sure they had a great plan and were in the right places in life to have you.
Yeah,
So
and
they
that's exactly
acted
what their choice should have been. They should have had that choice.
right,
So then that should
right.
be true for other parents as well. The other parents as well should be able to
And
choose
what if
when they
your
become a
mom
parent.
decided, and what if your mom decide like your dad wanted to have you and you're so excited and then your mom's like, "Well, you know what? Actually, I don't feel like it's time for me to like carry this baby."
Yeah, that would have been completely up to my mom. I mean, my mom
And
just
you
had
think
two
that's
children.
and
If
you
she doesn't
think
want to
that's
have another
right?
kid, that's up to her. What?
And you think, I'm just saying, you would think that's right?
Yeah, that's totally up to my mom. That is my mom's choice.
And you feel like that's what your mom would just like think
My
about
mom would
how
want to have
like
my mom. If you would ask her, she'd be
mhm,
like, "I would want to have Parker again." Right? Like she really loves
right.
me. Okay.
I
Of course,
believe
my mom
you.
wants me to be here, but it is still inevitably her
Right.
choice that happened.
But it was because of a choice she made to be
Yeah.
intimate with your father. It's not
Yes.
a choice that she chose to have you. You're a blessing from her and your father
She
being
wanted to have,
intimate.
like, my parents wanted to have
You
a
wanted
boy.
to
Like
have
they
kids.
had two girls. They
Right.
wanted to have a boy,
Okay.
like as well. Like they
Oh,
wanted
so
to
you're
have
the
me.
youngest?
Yeah, I am
Is what you're
youngest.
saying. Oh, so they were looking for a boy and they got you. That's sweet. Well, I don't know. So you come from what I've heard, a Christian family. Your parents are Christian,
Mm-hmm.
or did I hear that wrong?
They are.
Okay, so I'm sure your parents stand on the same stance as me when it comes to abortion. When we stand in a place of faith, we say, God blessed us with this child.
I mean, I've never had this conversation with my parents, but I'm pretty sure they don't think it should be illegal. I've never heard them ever once say it should be illegal.
Really?
Never
So
once.
why have you never talked to them about that? Isn't that
It's honestly
important?
just
If it's
never came
something
up.
that's
Yeah, we
so
never had
weird.
conversations about abortion. Literally, I've never had that
That's
conversation with my parents.
so weird.
How?
What? So you guys aren't that close?
No, I am
I
very
mean,
close to my
tell me
parents. I
if
just
I'm overstepping. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I'm just, that's crazy because I've had that conversation with both of my parents,
so let me tell you,
and
my mom is
I don't
liberal. My
stand.
mom is liberal. I would
Uh-huh.
assume that she's pro-choice, right? I've never
Okay.
had the conversation with my mom. I think max
Oh,
my mom would be like, "Oh, I probably wouldn't do it myself, but I don't think other people should have a restricted access." Like that would be
right.
probably my mom's position.
And what about your dad?
I don't know. I would assume that he would be pro-choice. I assume that his position is just it's literally up to the person. He doesn't really mind.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I like hearing that because,
Yeah,
like,
I don't think any no one in my family is like pro-life like that or anything.
okay, that's cool. So your parents support and like everything that you stand for, pretty much, in a
I
sense?
mean, my parents don't agree with me on everything now. I mean, I'm not Christian.
Right, right. But as far as like letting a person choose for themselves, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's where I get like where you don't want to mix law and faith because then, it's like I guess I grew up more in a more intense Christian home, so it's like for us,
I mean, I grew
that's
up pretty
wrong.
Christian. Like I went to church every single week twice.
Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was pretty Christian growing up. Like it's just like the way that I think my parents engaged in Christianity is a little bit different maybe than others do. And my parents aren't like gonna force it on me where I have to keep going, right? My parents are
Right.
pretty open with that. That's what you should do in that circumstance, by the way.
Right,
You
right.
shouldn't force your kids like as too much. Like I think that like it provided structure for me as a kid. Like the one I went to, I have good experiences when I went to my church as a kid. I really
Yeah.
still like the church. I would go back there today if I could. I would talk to all the people that used to go there. Like it was good community. So
Oh, that's cool.
I liked my church. My church was really cute when I grew up. So it was like one of those
Yeah.
like progressive churches, but like the only one, like practically one of the only ones like in the Iowa area. But at least
That's
the
cool.
yeah, but the point at least I'm saying here is that in terms of like the values from Christianity, I don't think
Mhm.
that they actually associate with Donald Trump at all.
Mhm. Right. I see that. Like honestly, that's why I like listening to you sometimes when I get a chance or like when I have free time because I try to be open-minded and learn from other people because like I said I grew up in a non-denominational church, but I would say it was within my family walls it was more like strict. Like we couldn't even watch cable TV and stuff like that growing up. So um sometimes it's hard to look at things with an open mind.
Okay. So that makes sense. I guess like what specifically would you say that like Jesus would want to feed children that are hungry? Would you say
Oh,
Jesus
$100.
would Jesus ever support a candidate for president that cut children's access to food?
No, I don't agree with that. I
You
think
know, Donald
it's
Trump did do that through the
wrong.
big beautiful bill, right? He cut over 420,000 children off of free school lunch and breakfast on average every single month.
Really? Didn't hear. I heard during this shutdown it was like a threat or something, but I never heard it actually went through. My sister's a school teacher, and she
Yeah,
never told me.
well, it's planned to go through here after I think after the elections, but the
Oh,
bill has
okay.
already been passed, and that's specifically
Uh,
for children, and it's according to the Congressional Budget Office, a bipartisan committee from the federal government, going to cut 420,000 children on average every single month off of access to food stamps. Not access to food stamps. Sorry, access to free school lunch and breakfast. I apologize.
no way. And it's set. It's actually gonna happen
Yes,
100%.
yes, that's already been
What?
passed.
Why? Just
Because the
because
big
of the
beautiful
bill?
Yeah, the big beautiful bill, they gave tax cuts disproportionately to the rich and wealthy, and in order to be able to make up some of that revenue to not add as much to the debt, they decided to cut access to food stamps, Medicaid, and children's access to free school lunch and breakfast. It's absurd. It's like it's by the way, it's such a small portion of the budget. Going after that is wildly absurd, right? Like you can go after so many other things, but he decides to go after that. And by the way, he's increasing the military budget to $1.5 trillion a year from $1 trillion, which we already spend more than the next 14 nations combined, most of them being our allies. And we could cut our military budget if we had $1.5 trillion by over $1 trillion and still have over $100 billion more than every single year than the next country, being China.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's like there's literally no reason we should be doing this at all.
Right. Yeah, no, I didn't know about that. Wow. That's sad. Because that's not Christian values at all.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say all the time. And you know, I actually really appreciate your response because I feel like when I say it, it oftentimes gets overlooked, and like most people
Mhm.
don't see it from that frame. Like I feel like that's one of like the most obvious things of like if you're a Christian, you should care about this is feeding children, right? Like feeding children, providing health care for those that are sick or unhealthy or in need, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. Wow. Sorry, I'm just stunned right now. That's horrible.
Hmm.
Do you feel like this is kind of random, but do you kind of think that Charlie Kirk was moving in that direction, like seeing the truth for what it is?
No, I don't. No, not especially on those positions.
No.
No, because
No?
Charlie was like a libertarian at heart. He's someone you.
Mhm.
He's then asked a question specifically. Would you be okay with taxing 1% of Jeff Bezos' net worth to get rid of all homelessness for veterans in the country? And he said no. He was asked that question by
Oh.
Kyle Kalinske. You can actually find that. I think it's from like 2019. He's kind of a person that doesn't want as much government expenditure, and he cares more about just like leaving it up to people. He thinks that taxation is theft, which by the way both sides are taxing and Trump's side is also taxing, so I really don't understand that perspective as being relevant, but he seemingly was like someone who wanted to reduce the level of spending in terms of like those
Wow.
types of services.
Wow. So it's kind of like wolves in sheep clothing in a way. I mean, I hate to say that, but wow.
I actually would agree with you there because like honestly I feel like this is one of the most basic elements of caring for people is ensuring that they have access to food, right? Like that's literally what Jesus fought for. So you know I think you're spot on with that analysis.
Wow. Well, thanks for bringing that up to me. I like don't have words right now because it's just like you look towards like the Trump administration as like, oh, they're carrying Christian values and this and that. And that's what I feel like a lot of Christians would turn towards that for that very reason. But then when you hear things like that, it's like, well, that's not Christian like at all.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or add before I do go on to the last person for today?
No, that's all. Thanks for your time. Have a great rest of your
Absolutely.
day.
You as well. Thank you so much.